So I know that there's tutoring for like specific classes. I know there's like SAT prep. There's like tutoring for like grading your college essay. Like I've done all that kind of stuff as a tutor. And I'm going to tell you why I like joy-based tutoring the best. Because it really taps into the individuality of your student, of your child. Okay. So as an English teacher, as someone who has a doctorate in education, like as somebody who's got all this experience in education, there's only so much like magic sauce I can bring to this, right? I've got my own like personality, my own teaching tech, using real world tasks to assess for understanding, as opposed to asking somebody to write me a 5-paragraph essay. Like no one's asking anybody to do that at their job. No one's asking you to foil an equation. Like nobody's asking you to do a book report. I mean, I guess unless you were for like a publishing house, but again, it wouldn't be a book report. Like I would want to find out what that looks like, and we're going to make one in the session if that's what your kid is interested in. They want to be a writer, right? But really, the idea about it is creating like neurological connections to something new, to something they love. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say, for instance, your kid loves Christmas. All right, I got a kid. He loves Christmas. He will color Santa Clauses all year round, right? He loves Christmas. In our session, if your kid is really hype about Christmas, I'm going to be pulling out like sales ads, and we're going to be looking at toys, and we're going to be looking at what toy sold the most last year. We're going to be looking at which Barbie was the most popular. And as we look at those statistics, we're looking at math, and we're going to be looking at different types of charts. And it's going to be my job to pull all different types of charts, right? So there's like scatter plot ones and pie charts and bar graphs. We're going to look as many as possible to try to answer our question. Which toy was the most popular last year? Okay. Which Christmas movie was shown the most on TV, or which one was streamed the most on, I don't know, Amazon Prime, like whatever. But the idea is that in answering a Christmas themed question, because I want to know what was the most popular toy from last year, what was the most popular candy, or what's the number one Christmas cookie everybody makes. By researching these questions, one, it's authentic curiosity. Your kid is going to want to know. They're going to be interested. They're going to want to know about these Christmas cookies, right? But we're learning about math. We're learning about business. We're learning about economy and trends, looking at this graph and that graph and this graph, and then maybe reading something and maybe listening to another something else and finding patterns, right? That's a language arts skill, by pulling things from a couple different resources and drawing a conclusion. It's also a scientific skill, right? So we're learning how to do all of these things, right? Am I going to explicitly be teaching about graphs and charts? Absolutely not. But the idea is that they're being exposed to these new things, right? So they work with me and we're having a good time, fa la la la, right? Okay. And then they go to math class, or they're in science class, and it might not be the first time they've ever seen it. They may have been learning about it for a while, but they're going to see it and they're going to like, oh, a scatter plot. You know what? I worked with Miss Amy on that, and I remember that. And then they'll start thinking about Christmas, and they're going to be excited and happy. And then they'll come back. You know what I mean? It's just going to give them a little boost of like, oh, I remember learning about that. And then we start looking at different maps, because I want to see like, where are the toys made? And then how do they get here? And then we start looking at things like ship manifests, right? Which are tables, right? Where we pull information, we draw conclusions about it. We're going to learn how to use it, that there's headings at the top that mean something and then come down. And there might even be like a little footnote that gives us a little more information about particular stop and times and abbreviations, and using a key down at the bottom. Like these are all map skills. They're all reading skills. They are text features that if your kid is reading through a textbook and doesn't understand something, being able to use the tables and charts and understand that they go along with what's in the text can really help. And sometimes using the text features, if you're real good at using text features, you can kind of skim over the reading. So even if you have a child who has dyslexia or something like that, and they has trouble transposing when they're reading, I understand that can also be a problem. They're looking at charts and numbers and things like that. But if your kid just has trouble getting through the sentence, being able to chunk things off on different parts of the page and being able to use other features other than the actual text is going to be really helpful. And honestly, it's a little more real world. When's the last time you read a real world document that was just text from top to bottom? No subtitles, no pictures, no graphs, no nothing. you're most likely not going to come across that unless it's like, I don't know, like a legal document or something. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, right? Now we're just talking about your kid. Then we jump into the folklore. All right. So they love Christmas. Okay. Well, let's find out a little bit about Santa Claus and being able to look at, especially in Europe, looking at the different traditions that lead up to Christmas. Um, I know there's some type of holiday where like they leave their shoes outside. Like, I don't know when that takes place, but I think it'd be interesting to talk about. Krampus. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Like, just some of the other folklore that surrounds Christmas and the holidays. Okay, well, why do we use candy canes? And just getting into some of the trivia, I guess, of Christmas. Looking at Christmas cards and looking at the art of it. What makes a really good Christmas card? And like, because I've got Christmas cards that my grandmother will save because she wants to paint them later, or she has painted them later, and or she's given them to me. She's like, I saw it, and I just thought of you, you know. Being able to identify patterns at what makes a popular Christmas card. And like, there's just so many things that we can be reading about that's going to help them make connections to other cultures. And if we're looking at maps or we're reading about different countries, just the fact that they're reading something and they see maybe a country or a town that they've never heard of, them understanding that it is a proper noun, like a place. You don't define Paris. It's just Paris. You know what I mean? That's going to help them in reading. When they're reading and they come across something in the middle of a sentence and it's a word that they don't know, but it's a capital letter in the middle of a sentence, you know what? It might be a name of a place. It might be a name of a person, and I can just kind of gloss over and I'm probably going to get more information later. There are kids that will get stuck in the middle of a sentence because they don't know the word because it's like a place that they've never heard of or a person's name or the title of something very specific, a proper noun. So the goal is that we start with Christmas and we start learning about all these facets that create Christmas, every little aspect of it. And it's going to build a big frame of context. It's going to build background knowledge, and especially in language arts, and I would say to all subjects, but the lack of background knowledge is what's hurting our kids. That's what I would hear when I would talk to other content teachers. They just don't have the context. They don't understand when, I have to go back and teach how to use a bar graph when I'm not supposed to be doing that right now. We need to move on to something else. And so by just doing fun activities like this, it doesn't necessarily need to be a worksheet where they're answering questions, but just us exploring questions, allowing their own curiosity to guide the conversation and to guide their instruction. And then I'm just the person here finding the tools. I'm really just the go-getter and the person to facilitate conversation and help with their thought process. So if you think joy-based tutoring might be something for you and your kid, let's hop on a call and let's chat.